Welcome back, horror fans. I'm Nicole, and you're watching Nicole's Nightmare Narratives, *. Today, we're delving into the chilling world of high school horror stories. High school is a time for friendships, growth, and unfortunately, sometimes nightmares. Join me as we explore 3 real and disturbing high school horror stories that will make you question your own school days. Get ready for some spine-chilling tales that will keep you up at night. Let's dive in. Story 1, The Haunted Locker. Our first story takes us to a seemingly ordinary high school, but with a haunting secret lurking behind one of its lockers. This story was shared by a former student who experienced something truly terrifying during their senior year. It all started in the fall semester of senior year at a high school in a small town. The school was an old building with creaky floors and long, dimly lit hallways that gave off an eerie vibe, especially after school hours. Among the students, there was a rumor about a particular locker in the back hallway. The locker was rumored to be haunted, but most students dismissed it as just a silly tale to scare freshmen. One day, a student named Jason found himself needing to use the locker for an emergency storage solution. He had just joined the drama club and needed a place to store his costumes and props for an upcoming play. Despite the spooky stories, Jason was practical and chose the locker in question. The first few days went by without incident, but things soon took a dark turn. Jason started to hear strange noises coming from the locker after school hours, soft whispers, and the sound of something scratching against the metal. At first, he thought it was just the old building settling, or perhaps his imagination running wild. But as the noises grew louder, he couldn't ignore them. One evening, as he was putting away some costumes, the lights in the hallway began to flicker. The temperature dropped, and Jason felt a chill run down his spine. He turned to see the locker door slightly ajar, even though he was sure he had closed it properly. Hesitant but determined, Jason approached the locker. When he opened it, he found nothing out of the ordinary. The costumes and props were exactly where he had left them, but as he closed the door, he noticed a note taped to the back. The note was written in shaky, uneven handwriting. "Help me." Jason was unnerved, but brushed it off as a prank. But the next day, things got worse. During drama practice, Jason overheard a conversation between 2 older students talking about the locker. They revealed that it had once belonged to a student named Emily, who had mysteriously disappeared many years ago. The rumor was that she had been trapped in the locker by a jealous classmate who had been angry over a romantic rivalry. Emily's disappearance had never been solved, and her story became one of the town's dark legends. Jason began to wonder if the whispers and the note were cries for help from Emily's restless spirit. Determined to uncover the truth, Jason did some research at the local library. He found old newspaper clippings about Emily's disappearance and discovered that she had been a beloved student known for her kindness. The clippings hinted at strange occurrences around the locker before her disappearance, but nothing concrete. That night, Jason decided to spend some time by the locker to see if he could make contact with Emily's spirit. Armed with a flashlight and his phone to record any strange occurrences, he waited in the dim hallway. After hours of silence, he started to hear the familiar scratching sound, followed by the whispers growing louder. He gathered his courage and asked if Emily was there. The scratching stopped, and the air grew colder. Suddenly, the locker door swung open by itself, and Jason saw an old, dusty photograph of a girl on the floor. It was a picture of Emily, her eyes filled with sadness. Jason took the photograph and left the school, his heart pounding. The next day, he handed the photograph over to the school administration, hoping it might help solve the mystery of Emily's disappearance. Though the administration promised to look into it, nothing ever came of it. Jason's encounter with the haunted locker remained a chilling experience that he would never forget. The whispers and the note were the only signs of Emily's troubled spirit, a reminder that some mysteries are left unsolved and that the past can reach out from beyond the grave. Story 2, The Ghost of Room 213. Our second story is about a high school with a haunted classroom that has been the subject of rumors for decades. This tale was shared by a former student who had a terrifying encounter in room 213. Room 213 was one of the oldest classrooms in the high school, located in a secluded part of the building that was rarely used. It had a reputation among students for being haunted, with stories of strange noises and eerie apparitions. The story begins with a student named Claire who is staying after school to work on a group project. Claire and her friends had been assigned to room 213 because it was the only available space. They were hesitant to go there, but the deadline for their project was looming, and they had no other choice. As they entered the room, they immediately noticed how different it felt. The atmosphere was heavy, and the room seemed colder than the rest of the building. The students set up their materials and began working, trying to ignore the unsettling feeling in the room. As they worked, Claire noticed that the lights flickered on and off. They tried to adjust the light switches, but it didn't help. They also heard strange sounds, scratching noises from the walls, and what sounded like footsteps echoing through the empty room. Eventually, the group decided to take a break. Claire went to the back of the room to grab some supplies when she saw something that made her blood run cold. In the corner of the room, there was a figure standing by the window. It was a shadowy, indistinct shape, but it had a human-like form. Claire tried to call her friends over to see the figure, but when they looked, it was gone. They were unnerved, but continued with their work. However, as the evening wore on, the disturbances grew more intense. The room grew colder, and the noises became more frequent and louder. At one point, Claire heard a voice whisper her name. She turned around, but there was no one there. The whispers grew louder, becoming an insistent, pleading sound. Claire could barely make out the words, but they seemed to be saying, "Help me." Frightened, Claire and her friends decided to leave the room. They packed up their things and hurried out, feeling as though they were being watched. When they reached the safety of the main hallway, Claire decided to look up the history of room 213 to see if there was any truth to the haunting stories. She discovered that room 213 had once been a classroom for students with special needs. Many years ago, there had been a tragic accident involving one of the students, a young boy who had died in the room under mysterious circumstances. Some believed that the boy's spirit had lingered, trapped in the room where he had spent his last moments. Claire's encounter with the ghost of room 213 left her shaken. She couldn't shake the feeling that the boy's spirit was reaching out for help, and the experience left her with a lingering sense of dread whenever she thought about the room. To this day, room 213 remains a place of mystery and fear, with students avoiding it and the legend of the ghostly figure continuing to haunt the high school. Story 3, The Shadow in the Gymnasium. Our final story is about a high school gymnasium that became the site of a terrifying supernatural encounter. This story comes from a former student who experienced something truly disturbing during a late-night event. The gymnasium at a high school was known for being the center of school activities. From basketball games to pep rallies, it was a lively place. But there was also a darker side to the gym, known only to a few students who had experienced something frightening within its walls. The story begins with a student named Ryan, who was part of the school's AV club. One night, the club was responsible for setting up the gym for a late-night event. It was a routine task, and the students were used to working in the gym after hours. As they set up the equipment and arranged the seats, Ryan started to notice something strange. The gym felt unusually cold, and the lights seemed to flicker sporadically. The air was thick, with an unsettling tension that Ryan couldn't ignore. During a break, Ryan went up to the balcony, overlooking the gymnasium. From this vantage point, he could see the entire floor below. As he looked out, he saw a shadowy figure standing in the middle of the gym. The figure was tall and indistinct, with no clear features, just a dark, shifting shape. Ryan thought it might be a trick of the light, or a figment of his imagination. He called out to his friends, but they were all busy setting up and didn't hear him. He watched the figure as it seemed to move slowly across the gym floor, its presence causing the temperature to drop even further. The shadowy figure began to approach the bleachers where Ryan was standing. Feeling a surge of fear, Ryan decided to investigate. He descended the stairs and moved toward the figure, but as he got closer, it vanished into thin air. Shaken, Ryan tried to convince himself it was nothing but a trick of the light or his own tired eyes. But the atmosphere in the gym remained heavy, and the coldness seemed to linger even after the figure had disappeared. Later, Ryan discovered that the gymnasium had a dark history. Many years ago, there had been a tragic accident during a school basketball game where a player had fallen and died under mysterious circumstances. Some believed that the player's spirit was still trapped in the gymnasium, haunting the place where his life had ended. Ryan's experience in the gym left him with a deep sense of unease. The shadowy figure he had seen was a haunting reminder of the tragedy that had occurred, and he couldn't escape the feeling that something malevolent was still lurking in the gymnasium's shadows. To this day, students who stay in the gym after hours often report strange occurrences and eerie feelings, adding to the legend of the shadowy presence that haunts the space. And that's it for today's video. 3 real and disturbing high school horror stories that show just how creepy the halls of our old schools can be. From the haunted locker with its chilling message to the ghostly figure in room 213 and the shadowy presence in the gymnasium, these tales remind us that even familiar places can hide dark and unsettling secrets. If you enjoyed these spine-tingling stories, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Nicole's Nightmare Narratives * for more creepy content. Hit the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest videos, and let me know in the comments if you've ever had a frightening experience at school, or if there are other stories you'd like to hear. Until next time, stay curious and stay scared.